they're just fans of your business. And so they are happy to talk about your business. And that is a wonderful thing.
1,000 followers that don't interact or advocate your brand are kind of useless.
I know a business, and I won't give any more hints about that. Their logo was lots of satisfied customers. And I'm like, really? What? What does that mean? Lots of satisfied customers and a few who think we totally suck? I mean, welcome to Marketing Guides for Small Businesses, the podcast where we unpack real-world marketing strategies for small and mid-sized business owners. I'm your host for today's episode, Jeff Steck from Tylerica Marketing Systems in Austin, Texas. And today I'm joined by my co-hosts Paul Barthel from Changescape Web in St. Charles, Missouri, and Ian Cantle from Outsource Marketing in Toronto, Canada. Ken Tucker is traveling today, so if you see him on the flyby, give him a wave. Today, we're going to dive into one of our most powerful and often underused growth tools for small businesses, building a community of brand advocates. And this isn't just about getting likes and follows. It's about turning satisfied customers into vocal supporters who refer, share, and promote your business because they love it. Whether you're just starting out or looking to deepen customer relationships, this episode is packed with real-world strategies you can use today. So let's jump in. We're going to organize this around three main themes. The first one is the foundations of brand advocacy. Since there's only three of us, we'll probably be a little more freeform and jumping in. But for the purposes of kicking off questions, Paul, let's start with you. What do we mean by brand advocates, and why are they so valuable for small businesses?
Well, they're customers that promote your business without you asking. They refer people to you. They're not paid, so they're not influencers, but they like your business. They like doing business with you. They trust you, and so they refer you. It's kind of like a referral program that you didn't formally set up, if you want to look at it that way. And I think referral programs are a good thing that every business should be utilizing. But it's important because for small businesses, and I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, but about 63% of small businesses say word of mouth is their top source of new customers. And I mean, that's good, but if that's the only way you're getting customers, that can dry up. But people trust that. People trust recommendations as much or more than online reviews. So that is really, really important, because it's unlike someone that's never done business with you before and doesn't have that referral. It's like you still have to kind of go through that trust stage. But if a friend refers a business to me, it's like, okay, I trust my friend, and they trust this business, so I can trust this business. So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, that so-called warm introduction, right?
Yeah.
You know, that you think of the buyer's journey. We've talked about that a lot before, where like 2/3 of it is made before somebody even contacts you. It's a way to bypass some of that and jumpstart it, right?
Right.
Ian, any thoughts on what we mean by brand advocates? And we're going to get into, how to find them and all, but just kind of defining it, other terms that you might hear I've got a couple, but are there other ways to describe them?
Yeah, I mean, the term brand ambassador, fans, your tribe. There's all sorts of terms for it. The one thing I would add related to word of mouth is that when most businesses, because I've had lots of conversations with businesses where they come to me for, they want to talk about marketing. They need marketing support. And when we start to dig into what has worked in the past for them, they say word of mouth marketing. And so I dig into that a little bit with them. Like, what do you mean by that? Because what I've learned over the years is when people say word of mouth marketing, they actually don't mean anything about marketing. They mean happenstance word of mouth. Somebody happens with no education, no resources provided, nothing. Like, they're just fans of your business. And so they are happy to talk about your business. And that is a wonderful thing. And we should cultivate that as businesses for sure. But I do want to make it clear that when we talk about word of mouth marketing, that's like a strategy. You actually create a plan around that of how to help your fans talk more about you and share word of mouth with other people. But it really, unless you have a plan, it just happens by accident, and it's not something you can dial up or dial down. It's just there. So I do like to talk about that differentiation, because not everybody understands that.
Yeah, I think we're going to dig into that more for sure. Back in my high tech days, we didn't call them brand advocates. They were the evangelists, right? They were if you were doing account-based marketing, they were the contacts that you had in an account that would introduce you to other people. We call them very large companies in the high tech space and multiple products under development, and you want somebody in one product development group to take you to another product development group. So that's the type of person we're talking about, the person who would advocate for you, that would be an evangelist for what you're offering and help lead you in and help create those introductions. And really one of the terms we had is the people that sell in your absence, right? You're not there all the time, but they're out there. They've got maybe more contact and they're selling for you because they believe so much in what you do, and they advocate for it. So yeah, all good points. So let's move into you kind of started to set that up a little bit, Ian. So let's dig into that a little deeper. The difference between satisfied customers and a true advocate, or, you get that spectrum of people. Let's talk about what that difference is from satisfied customer to true advocate, and then kind of dig into that a little more.
Sure, I can start with that. A satisfied customer is fantastic. That should be definitely a goal with every single customer that we serve, every patient, every client, whatever type of business we have. We should be out to satisfy them, to make sure that they have a great experience, that they get what we promised they'll get. And because they're going to shop from us again, right? They'll be a repeat buyer, which is wonderful for our business and good for them too. They don't have to spend the time, energy, and money to go searching for another solution. So it's beneficial. It's mutually beneficial. But an advocate, they actually go out of their way. You were talking about that, Jeff. They go out of their way to promote you, whether it's internally within a business, whether it's within an association of people or a group of like-minded individuals, or whether it's just, they're out and about. Maybe they're I think of BNI, right? Where you have these other business owners who are keeping their eye out for, like-minded clients that would value your service. And so they are essentially an advocate for your business. But it comes from emotion, not just a transaction. It's the customers that I think of like reviews, right? You have the customers, clients, or patients that will give you a 5-star review because they're super happy with you. But it's the advocates that leave, a 3-page long review with photos of their experience because they're super emotional about what you have done to help them. And I see those guys as the advocates and kind of the low-hanging fruit of advocacy. You can reach out to those people and start to empower them a little bit more as well.
Yeah, good points. Paul, anything you want to add on that?
No, not really. I'm not an emotional person, so I'm not going to leave a 3-page review with pictures. I'll give you a 5-star review, but I'm not going to leave you a 3-page review.
So don't ask Paul to be your advocate. No, only kidding.
Hey, Paul, can you leave me a review?
Sure.
I think
write it up and send it to me, and I'll post it.
There we go. That's awesome.
You could almost make the argument again with the distinction between satisfied customers and brand advocates. Satisfied customers should really be your absolute minimum goal, right?
Yeah.
Why would you want to have any customer who's not satisfied, right? You want to have satisfied customers. That's the minimum price of entry. That doesn't mean that a satisfied customer is going to go out of the way to talk you up or to lead you to other opportunities or to mention you when the opportunities present. That's the advocate's, kind of realm. So you want to get everyone that you can to satisfied customers, but then you want to start by, maybe nurturing a few, but eventually move as many as you can up to brand advocates. So where there is that emotional connection. They believe so much in what you do. They're the true believers that they're going to go out there and they're going to tell everyone, that's the root of the word evangelism is spread the good news, right? So they're going to go out and they're going to tell everyone about you and about what you do and why you're so great and how, why would you not want to work with these guys? So yeah, I think there is a big difference and moving people up that progression is important.
Yeah, I've always found that amusing when businesses say we have satisfied customers or we do quality work. It's like, what are you going to say?
Yeah.
Our customers think we suck because our work sucks. Pay us to do something.
I know a business, and I won't give any more hints about that because it might come back on me. But their logo was lots of satisfied customers, and I'm like, really? What? What does that mean? Lots of satisfied customers and a few who think we totally suck? I mean, I wasn't working with them in a marketing capacity, but it was before I got into the marketing world. But I'm like, really, dude? You need to talk to
Well,
the
and in some industries and some marketplaces, right? The market is so underserved that just satisfying the clients is a huge step forward, but it's not the end goal, right? You do want to make them raving fans of your business. You don't just want to stop at satisfaction. But, I think we get into it later about Net Promoter Score and that kind of stuff. But lots of big businesses use this measurement through surveys and asking them questions and stuff about, that shows are they satisfied, but would they be willing to promote you, with their friends, family, colleagues, and that kind of stuff.
So you are getting it. It's the next question. How can business owners identify who their brand advocates already are? If you haven't been thinking about it, if you haven't been focused on it, you do a great job. You get a lot of people that are happy, but how do you pick out those ones that are the brand advocates?
Yeah, I would start by if you as the business owner aren't directly connected with your clients, patients, or customers, I would ask your front end staff, like who is it that gets excited about, whether they're in your store, getting their hair cut, getting their teeth cleaned, whatever it is, ask them who their biggest fans are, because that right there, the frontline staff are usually the ones that have the feeling of the vibe of what's happening, right? So I think that's really important. That tip I talked about, looking at reviews, the people that leave long, positive, verbose, lots of fanfare, pulling out people's names saying, hey, this person cleaned my teeth and this person, was the gentlest dentist I've ever used. And they go into great detail of how their children were cared for. Like, those are the people that I think are like, they took the time and the energy to leave a really big review, whereas the people that just, 5 stars, it's helpful. Don't get me wrong. Like, we all want more 5-star reviews, but definitely from a Google standpoint, Google values the 5-star review with words more than the 5-star review without words. And as consumers, when we go and look at reviews, we want to understand what the person's experience was, right? So as an advocate, if that person is leaving a verbose, really interesting review where they might have had the same pain points or challenges that you're feeling, and that particular provider, dentist, whatever, was able to solve that problem, right there, they've done a wonderful job of selling the idea of trying these people out. The other thing, I mentioned the Net Promoter Score. The question is, how likely are you to recommend us to a friend, right? Like, that's, if you do that survey after every sale, it helps you understand just how likely they are. It's basically a scale of, I think it's 1 to 10. I can't remember what the normal scale is, but it's something like that. And, the high, if it's 8 and above, usually those are your brand advocates, and lower down, they might be satisfied in the middle, high middle, right? But once you start getting down to 5 or below that, those people aren't really very happy with you. So it's a way of knowing just how well people are appreciating you and how well you're serving them.
Yeah. Watch the scales. Yeah, I think you're right. It is a 1 to 10. I know somebody in a networking group that talks about their competitors being a Net Promoter Score of 8 and they're an 87. So he said, we're 10 times better than that. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know if that's the same scale that you're using to compare them. And of course, the 5 stars is a Net Promoter Score kind of metric in itself, right? And then instead of, an 8 or 9, you're looking for the 5 stars. Paul, any other thoughts on kind of ways to identify brand advocates, or any examples that you've seen with, where they can kind of organically come up from?
Not really. Like Ian said, I think it's start by asking whoever it is that interacts the most with your clients or customers. That's a good place to start, and you can send out surveys after a job is completed. and hope they fill it out, because people get busy, and not everybody's going to fill it out. But it's like, if you get a low score, it's like getting a bad review. It's not a bad thing, in the sense that it points out an area where you need to improve.
Figure out why and fix it.
Right.
I think.
I mean, you can use call recording to some degree, right? If you can keyword tag or keyword search call recordings, or get what's the word I'm looking for? Like what the emotion was in the call recording. Like some of the AI software that's built into call recording will tell you that now. So you can even do some like scrubbing and go through and just see like, who had great experiences. Social media, if you have fans and they're posting without prompting, even with prompting, right? If they're posting and they're sharing an experience about an experience they had with you as your business, then that right there is very positive, right? They took the time and energy to do something that's promoting your business and talking about their experience. So that's a pretty big deal.
Looking at your CRM data, looking at how people are interacting and engaging, if you have visit tracking on your website, you mentioned social media, but I think also just how long somebody's been with you, right? If somebody was with you, especially from the early days, if they were with you at, the day they started. I just joined a new group this morning as one of the so-called founding members, just one of the first ones to jump on board. Now, we'll see where it goes, but if I'm with it, 2, 3, 5 years from now, I'll be one of the old sages and potentially a brand advocate. So you can go back and look at your customer data and see who has been with you since the early days. And there's a reason why they're hanging with you. And if you don't know it, you may want to ask them, but then while you're having that conversation, you could potentially invite them to a brand advocate role as well.
Jeff, that's a real good point, because one of the things I do try to reinforce with my clients is that every time, because in our marketing hourglass, which is a form of the buyer's journey, right? We have know, like, trust, try, buy, repeat, and refer. And so we're kind of talking about the refer part right now, as well as the repeat. But the part that as a business, we have to be really clearly understanding that whenever somebody buys from us again, for us as marketing agencies, whenever somebody extends their contract, continues on with us, pays another month, right? They are showing that they have decided on us again, to choose us again versus the competition. Every time I go to my dentist, I'm telling them, in essence, I'm choosing you again over the other 22 dentists in my town. And I think that's true with every business, that, you just have to be cognizant of that first of all, the positive side of it is that they're making that decision again and again. On the cautious side to the business, you need to be aware that retention is based on satisfaction, right? So you kind of need to marry those two ideas in your mind, and you shouldn't assume retention at any time. You should always be working to keep your clients and keep them happy and over deliver.
You triggered a really good thought when you talked about the marketing hourglass. Those bottom two steps, the ones that widen out the hourglass, provide the base. The repeat and refer. Repeat is really satisfied customers, and refer is really brand advocates, or at least moving toward brand advocates. They're the people who really believe in what you do and are willing at least to tell other people. Maybe you incentivize them to refer. Maybe they just do it organically. But yeah. So I want to dig in now. Switch to the kind of the middle segment of the podcast, which is building and engaging a community. And I've got the next question I'm going to go to Paul for. But before we do that, I'm going to go off script a little bit. So buckle up, guys. Let's talk a little bit about, what does it mean to have a community, and is the community brand advocates? Are brand advocates the community? What does it mean to have a community, and how do the different places people could fit into their, what does that mean? Just throw that out there, and there'll be as pregnant pause while you catch up on the question I just asked. But discuss among yourselves.
Well, I can start and Paul can jump in. I would just say community is ultimately what you're trying to create to some degree, right? Businesses that are doing really well, like, for example, one of the dentists that I was helping grow their practice, they would do patient appreciation events, like take them to movies, rent out a movie theater, do a celebration, do all sorts of different things. I helped the Orthodontist, and they were doing like cruises on their lake where they would rent a big boat and have a party on a boat and just different things, right? But the point is that you're trying to bring together individuals to become a community and have a shared experience. And so there's real life ways of doing that, like what I just talked about. And then there's online ways that are becoming more and more common where, especially if you do some sort of training program, usually part of a mastermind or a training program is you get kind of exclusive access to the person running it through a community. And it might be like a Facebook group. It might be, Circle. It might be, I don't know. There's all sorts
another one. Yeah, there's lots.
Yeah. And so what it does is it allows people to share an experience, to share knowledge, so for example, I know you guys are in similar communities as me, related to marketing, right? And some of those communities are so strong because, first of all, you're trained in the same philosophy of this is how to do effective marketing. So when you have a question, like say you run into a hiccup, might be a technical hiccup, might be hey, I'm thinking of investing in this particular tool or this particular way with my agency to serve my clients better. And you throw it out to the community and just ask, hey, what, have you guys gone down this path, or, what's your experience been? You're able to get a whole host of people that are like-minded professionals in this case who are able to share, their experience. And it helps you tremendously, jump faster through the hoops that you need to jump through in order to make smart business decisions. But I think there's lots of examples of that in so many different ways, just from a digital standpoint for all types of businesses.
Yeah, I think that communities are hot right now. But they've always been around, right? If you think one of the biggest examples of, community in the product affinity sense is, Ford versus Chevy owners, right? When you're talking about trucks, I live in Texas. When you're talking about trucks, it's
they hate each
religious, other. Ford and Chevy, right?
Yeah.
And you can have a lot of opinions on one side or the other, but really Ford and Chevy have built community. Yeah. Even though it's not active, I mean, there are probably Ford events you can go to or Ford owners groups, but mainly it's just this brand affinity, this brand knowledge, this identity. People are striving for connection, especially post-COVID. People are looking for places to connect and feel a part of something. So communities and building brand communities is a hot area right now. So,
hey, Jeff, the one thing to support that is, I don't know if you've ever been at a stoplight and you see a Ford or a GM truck. And if you're familiar with Calvin and Hobbes, there's Calvin defecating on the alternative, logo or whatever on the back of their window. And I can't tell you the number of times I've seen that on both of the brands' trucks. So people care very deeply about not just that they're Ford people or not just that they're GMC people, but that the other one sucks. And
yeah. Paul, before I go to you, the next question, I think you want to jump in on the off-book question.
No, because I think some of the things I was going to say would be included in that question.
All right, so let's get into the actual question. So we're talking about building communities or a fan base around your brand. So where do you start? What's the first step?
Well, part of it goes back to what something Ian said earlier, but the key word there is building. Community kind of infers intentionality. Unlike the Ford and Chevy thing, people are they like Ford and they hate Chevy for whatever reason. But it wasn't something that Ford or Chevy went out and intentionally did necessarily. And that's what I mean, goes back to something Ian said. It's about strategy. You have to put a strategy in place and start small. We talk about vanity metrics a lot. 1,000 followers that don't interact or advocate your brand are kind of useless. I mean, great, you got 1,000 followers, or are they advocating for your business? So don't think you need a huge number. And Ian just talked about this, about some kind of VIP group or whatever you want to call it, newsletters. Apparently newsletters are really big. I was never a newsletter person, but people use newsletters to build communities. And especially if you're talking about, is you're going to have local competition, but say you're a plumbing business in Ohio, and you have this community, this nationwide community, maybe a plumber in Georgia has solved a problem that you're having. Well, that's not a competitor. You're not going to be driving to Georgia to install somebody's toilet, but these communities pop up, and it's a good place to share business ideas and things like that. So yeah, I think it's bigger now than it used to be. And it can be a good way to build advocates for your business.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's a way to create engagement and stay top of mind, keep people involved, right? And when you do that, then some of them at least will naturally evolve into becoming advocates.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. And there's a lot of ways to do that. You mentioned newsletters, and if I'm a plumber, what am I going to put out in a newsletter? But you can do, it doesn't have to be weekly. It can be monthly. It can be every other month. It can be once a quarter. But if you put out just general, what's going on, things are changing, things are evolving, but even just a little general interest. I know two alternative money lenders here in the Austin area, and they approach their business very differently. They actually focus on slightly different things. But one of them puts out a newsletter that starts and ends with a joke. And I know a lot of people that, will skim down through the newsletter because they want to read the jokes. So you've got content in there, you've got something that entertains, that informs, but the point is people are opening it and looking at it, and that's keeping your brand top of mind with them. And then the other alternative money lender, he does a lot of events, and his approach is to constantly send out an email about an event that you might want to know about and go to, or, hey, I'm going to this event. Would you like to join me? I need a networking buddy. And he does, really well building his community. He is one of the top connectors in the Austin area. Shout out to Artie. It's just, there's those super connectors, and he's one of them. So yeah, I think community has got a lot of benefits, and there's a lot of different ways to build it. But you're right, Paul. You have to be intentional about it. Thoughts
if I can add something. Yeah, one of the things I've seen that's really interesting too is, I've seen a lot of different businesses do this in their own unique way, but sometimes you can even rally around charitable giving as a business. So, one of the dentists I've served, they are supporting our local hospital. They're the fundraising side of that hospital. I've seen other clients do things that are related to, animal shelters. Like if you have a heart for something, and animals are always good because there's a lot of animal lovers out there. In fact, animal lovers think other animal lovers are usually nicer people. So it's always, it reduces
cats or
barriers.
Dogs, though. You're going to have to get into that. Cats or dogs.
I know. You gotta be careful how you walk that line. But if you do charitable giving around that kind of stuff, like you can sometimes, as a business, meaning, hey, for the month of June, every time, you come in or you buy something at a restaurant or whatever you do, we're going to give X percentage to this charity. And it just creates a feeling of community because people feel good about that. Right. So it's that's a pretty easy way to do it, especially if you have a heart for something already, like that.
All right, let's keep going with you. I'll come back to you for the next question. So how can small, medium-sized businesses turn customers into brand advocates, even on a tight budget? We always come back to budget.
Yeah. Well, I mean, money's an important part of the whole business equation, right? So it makes sense. You don't need often big rewards to create loyalty. You can start with consistent, meaningful gestures. Like thank you emails, like handwritten thank you notes in the actual mail. I mean, stuff like that actually means a lot to people because it happens so rarely today. Social shout outs, right? Birthday messages, that's probably the easiest and lowest bar to hit as a business because it's so easy to do, right? There's really not a business out there that can't ask the questions that will give you the information in order to deliver something as simple as this. And if you work in any kind of medical field, you already have everybody's birthday. So, you should be sending birthday messages out to people. And again, if you want to raise the bar, you could make it even sweeter. And if your margins are high enough as a business, you can even send them, an Amazon gift card or a Starbucks card or something. It doesn't have to be huge, but sometimes those small showing of thanks can mean a lot to people. Asking for referrals. My goodness. I mean, the stats are pretty crazy. It's similar to asking for reviews, right? I don't know what the latest, today's stats are, but the ones that really have struck me over the years are, 80 to 90% of consumers trust online reviews as much as a personal recommendation from a friend or family member. But And there's also a stat that's almost equally as high. I think the stat for, the percentage of people that will leave a review if prompted is something like 60%. But the unprompted reviews happen only 6% of the time, right? So in the same way, you need to ask people to refer you. You need to equip them. You need to help them understand, like, how do I spot this? I think I'm so familiar with this, and any of you guys, if you've been in BNI, and I think you are, Jeff, or you have been, is that right?
I've been a guest at several BNIs,
okay,
but I'm not currently
in BNI. It's just so intentional about educating and equipping the other members of your BNI chapter about how do you spot somebody that might need your services, and how do you effectively communicate the value you as a business bring, so that they're able to say, hey, I know a guy, I know a gal, like who can help you in this particular need. And then, lastly, you need to recognize, we talked about it, but recognize super fans, and then publicly recognize them, give them shout outs, just give them that boost, feature them in a post. If they're willing. Recently, one of my clients, we were encouraging them to get video testimonials. And so one of my dental clients just recently did an Invisalign, post Invisalign, like getting their Invisalign off. They had one of their patients do a video, and it was out of this world. Like, nobody could have said anything better than what she said on this video. And we were able to, post it and use it on social media, to promote the business. But those are fantastic, because the only thing better, we as business people have to be talking about how great our business is, because nobody else necessarily will be. But the better thing than that is if other people will talk about our business, just from a trust standpoint, right? So I think there's lots of ways to ask people, but it all starts with creating great experiences, thanking them as customers, doing the little things, and then you can start to raise the bar over time.
You hit on one of the key words, experiences, right? And it's somewhat generational, but especially the younger generations, they're very experience oriented. So creating experiences, curating experiences, providing something that not everybody can get. Those are all ways that you can incentivize behaviors and reward people. And really, if you think about it, it can be a double bang for the buck. You can have some kind of an event that's, for your top advocates, your top referrals. You can gamify it. You can promote it up front. You can talk about what you're doing. You can get some press out of that. And then you get the event itself and the experience that people get out of it. And then they're going to be talking about it. So you get some mileage from them, and outside of even them staying engaged as a brand advocate and all that you would get from that. I mean, just the other people's content and the buzz that you can get from them. A lot of things go around that.
There's an example, Jeff, that just came to mind as you were talking about that, where, and I think this is true in a lot of businesses. So again, you have to, understand if it's a good fit for you. But there's a marketing agency owner that I know that he came from the Midwest, right? And kind of from a farming community. And in this particular community, they actually have an annual rodeo. It's a very small rodeo. And so this agency owner, when they got to a certain size, sorry, just to set that up, his family always went to this rodeo. They'd take their trailer, they'd camp out for 3 days. It's in a remote part of the area. And so you really do have to bring a camper or a trailer. And they'd have campfires, they'd have a whole blast. And he started inviting his clients to this and saying, hey, bring your trailer, we'll carve out an area, we'll just have fun together. And it's turned into an annual event now, and they've been doing it for years. And so stuff like that, where you can invite your customers, clients into something that you're already doing and you're already passionate about, can be such a wonderful experience for them and great for you.
Be creative, right?
Yeah.
Make it work for everybody and be creative. Paul, anything you want to add on this turning customers into brand advocates? I'll come back to you with the next question if not, but if you want to add anything here, go for it.
No, I'm good.
So Paul, you're our tools and platforms guy. So let's talk about what tools and platforms are the most effective for fostering community and advocacy.
Depends on where they already are. We've said that in the past, and it does. A lot of times that's going to be Facebook groups. It could be email lists if that's how you interact with your customers. But almost any of the social media platforms. But a lot of people are turning to platforms like Circle because they don't want to be dependent on Facebook. They want to control the experience more. So yeah, it really depends on where they are, and don't rule out offline events and things like that too. That sponsoring something in the community can go a long way. People are very, going back to community, but people are more and more, you probably heard of like ethical investing, things like that people are concerned about what's going on in their society and in their community. And I don't mean the community we're talking about here, but like, they're where they live. And sponsoring something in there, like Ian was talking about the whole animal thing, but getting involved with something like that and sponsoring something like that can make a big difference. 40% of consumers say they're more loyal to brands that they engage with in online and offline communities, and 81% of community members say they're brand advocates. That sounds a little high to me, but maybe it's true. But start with one channel and keep it manageable, and then expand from there. Like we said earlier, start small.
I think that the statistics, Paul, it may be, 81% may self-identify. You may not consider them a true brand advocate yet, but they might think of themselves as one. I think that's probably where I was going, but it's a continuum, right? And as a business owner, what you want to do is figure out where people are on that, and then do what you need to do, nurture them, move them up. If they're not quite a brand advocate yet, they probably have potential, and you can work them up toward being the brand advocate that you'd really like to see them be. Yeah, as you were kind of talking through that notion of it's a continuum is what popped into my mind, and that means you got to work at it. You got to think about it, and going back to what you both have said earlier, be intentional about how you approach it and the things you do. Should we move on to section 3? 3 of 3? Let's talk about measuring and sustaining advocacy. So Ian, let's go back to you. How can small and medium businesses reward or recognize their advocates without making it feel like they're just being bought, too transactional?
Yeah. I mean, some people like to be bought. So, it's sometimes discounts or bonuses or free gift with, like, that kind of stuff can be very powerful for the right kind of people, but it's not the right thing for everybody or a great fit. So again, you can, we were talking about using testimonials or spotlighting certain people. You can give super fans a platform. You can feature them in your email or give them early access to products or services. Or, if you're introducing, something new in your business, you could invite them to be the first to experience it, right? There has to be value. You don't want them to feel like a guinea pig. You want them to think they're getting something for, as a first one to jump on it, they're getting a deal. But then they can also share their experience, right? So you kind of have that two prong effect, which is wonderful. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it where people even reach out and ask a certain group of their fans to like name a service or product, or help me choose a logo, which I hate because I studied as a graphic designer, and if you don't have a plan, why are you like. Anyways, but it's focus groups can be powerful too. Yeah, like there's just opportunities to reward people. There's examples of, phone companies that give out, free cases or early releases of phones, stuff that gives a sense of belonging. And I do love the idea of, group events when you can do that kind of stuff, because I think it just has a powerful community effect. And, and the grumblers aren't going to come. It's time out of their day. So usually get all the advocates and not the grumblers.
Yeah, there's a couple of examples that came to mind as you're talking through that. Ben and Jerry's, especially in their early days, I think they would do submissions for suggesting flavors.
That's right.
Suggesting mixes of, what's one of my favorite Ben and Jerry sayings: "A chunk's not a chunk unless it's a chunk." The stuff that's in the ice cream, the big chunks. And then there's I'm a not as much as I used to be, but I play a few online games, a few PC-based games, and one of them is a military simulator game, and people can develop their own camouflages for the airplanes, the tanks, the warships, and they've got a huge community around that, and some of them are theme-based, decorative-based. It doesn't really matter in the gameplay. It's not like camouflage actually hides you. It's purely aesthetics, but they build their community. They draw people in around that and get them submitting designs for camouflage for tanks and things. It's kind of cool. Paul, anything you want to add on recognizing and rewarding?
Is fluorescent orange a camouflage?
It can be, yeah, to the right person.
And in the right situation.
Some of these camos get pretty ornate, pretty involved. And when you talk about, not to go too far down a rabbit hole, but when you're skinning objects in graphical worlds, the sky's the limit. You can do anything you want. Make an F-16 look like a spaceship or something. It gets pretty crazy. So, Paul, let's jump over to you then. What are some common mistakes that businesses make when they're trying to build a brand community?
Well, I think a big one is treating it like a marketing channel. It's because community is supposed to be about relationships. And I thought about, I don't know who I was talking to the other day about businesses have a reluctance around email marketing, and it's probably because the way they view it. Email marketing is not buying a list and blasting it out to everybody from your free Gmail account. That's not email marketing. It will get you marked as spam. And it's also not every email you send out is, "We're the greatest thing on the planet, buy our stuff." That is not email marketing. There's nothing wrong with working things into there, but talk about things that are going on within the local community. Talk about things you're involved in. Not every email should be about selling stuff, and I think that happens in the community in the sense we're talking about it now. Is they say, "Oh, hey, it's just another marketing channel." Be consistent. If you're not consistent, people can lose interest, and you can't buy loyalty. So if every reward or perk or whatever is transactional in some way, you may wind up with people that aren't necessarily brand advocates. I call it the Groupon effect. It's like people that use Groupon use that for a reason. And if you think someone's going to take one of a Groupon and come to your business, no matter how great you may really be, if you think they're going to come back and pay full price for whatever your product or service is, you're naive. Okay, it's not going to happen.
Get the next Groupon and jump to
exactly.
Yeah,
yeah. I think you're onto something there, Paul. The notion of you can't buy advocates; they've got to be homegrown. You can't just use them as a group to market to. Use your community as a group to market to. You've got to add value. And it's got to be authentic. If you get people talking about you, you want them talking about you authentically and in a good way, and not like, yeah, well, I don't really care whether their stuff is good or not. I'm getting paid for it. That's definitely what you don't want. So yeah, you're dead on.
I love the authenticity piece that you talked about, Paul. Like just, social media can be a community, but you have to treat it like you're a member of that community. So you can automate social posting, right? You can automate, you can pre-plan it. You can say, hey, as a business, I should be talking about this, and this over, a span of a few months. So I'm going to pre-plan those posts over time and then engage with people if they respond. But I can't tell you the number of times I've seen where businesses think that they can either outsource the human interaction part, or they don't even do the human interaction part. And, it is called social media for a reason, and you can't ignore that part of it. And you're not going to create a community without it. But a really cool example of this, and maybe you guys have experienced this, is when you're part of a coaching group or something, and maybe you've bought into that coaching group. Usually it's because the head person, the author, the trainer, the coach, has notoriety, and they've attracted you through their free training, and then you buy into it and you become part of their community, their group. The really good ones are the ones that recognize that the people that have bought in, you need to create the community by being a part of the community. You can't just assume, well, people are going to do their thing and it's going to flourish on its own. You have to be the spearhead of that. And usually you create much greater community because you are the face of that community. So just a reminder, like, don't be lazy about it. Count the costs before you go down that path, because it needs to be sustainable. You can't just start it and then stop it. You need to keep it going.
Yeah. So on this notion about mistakes, I think we've wrapped that one up. We're heading into the bottom of the show here. We want to get one more question in, and then maybe a few closing thoughts. So let's start with Ian. Let's talk about the long-term value of a strong brand advocate community, and how do you sustain it?
Yeah. Great question. Like, what's the whole point of all this, right? Well, one of the biggest points, the business case of why you should care about this, is that brand advocates have a 16% higher lifetime value than regular average customers, right? So that's massive, right? Like right there, the mathematical equation makes a lot of sense. And they're 3 times more likely to refer others. So from a sustainable long-term, like how am I going to grow this business? It just makes so much sense to invest in your brand advocates, to spot them, to invest in them, to nurture them, and to encourage them. And then, from strong communities, you can improve retention, especially during hard times. Like right now, some businesses are really feeling the pinch because of the economic downturn. So, having brand advocates is absolutely a powerful way to retain clients or customers. But you as a business really need to spend some time, energy, and investment in that. And if you have a team that's front-facing, in front of customer-facing or customer-facing people, you need to educate and train and help those people understand the value of those people, to the business, but also to their longevity in their role in the business. Because I see that disconnect all the time where people forget that they're not just working a job, they're actually keeping a good business sustainable, which is in their long-term interest as well.
That statistic about the higher lifetime value, let's dig into that a little bit more. That's, like you said, that's huge. If you didn't do anything else in your business, if you could move people up to that brand advocate level, that essentially means you got 16% more, revenue, 16% growth, right? That's, I mean, most businesses would kill for that. So that in itself is huge. And then, as you said, the retention aspect of it, even satisfied customers, they're open to looking around. Brand advocates, especially people that will publicly state, I guess, what an advocate is, right? They're publicly stating that they're locked in with this company, and that's going to reduce your churn, increase your retention. You're absolutely right. Paul, any thoughts on this question of long-term value and how you sustain it?
You need people to get involved. So, ask for their feedback, ask if they have any ideas, ask if there's what they think needs to be improved. Because, if you get people involved, they're going to stick around longer. And this is something that it's definitely on the rise, because I think in this online post-COVID, always connected world that we live in, it's people want to be involved in community. And if you can leverage that for your business, that's only going to help you. And it goes back to what Ian said about the 16% higher lifetime value. If community can help you do that, then why wouldn't you?
I think you're onto something really important too, Paul, is that the community's got to work both ways, right? You can do the things to set it up and enable it, but you still got to nurture it. You got to stay engaged, and you got to keep people engaged and keep bringing them along. You're absolutely right. If we're good on that question, I'll start to move into the close.
Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about a lot of things. This podcast has, I hope, been packed full of insightful information for our listeners. And I hope it's inspired them to really look at their customers a little differently. And before we close, let's go around real quick and talk about one thing that a small business should do this week. Well, maybe next week, because, depending on when this drops, we're heading toward the end of the week now. We record on Thursdays. So Ian, anything you want to say about one thing that people could do this week or next week?
Yeah, I think in small businesses, look at your customer list, think about who your greatest fans are, and reach out to those people. Say thank you. If they haven't done a review, ask them to do a review, or give feedback. Just ask, just open the door for momentum to start to build. Paul,
what's your one thing?
Start a referral list and ask people to join, and just recognize you have to give them a reason to join. Mm-hmm. And keep in mind that this does take some work. It doesn't just happen by itself. So just keep that in mind when you're starting, and it goes back to the whole consistency thing.
Yeah. So, and to be clear, when you talk about starting referrals, you just don't mean any general, like, join our email list. You're talking about specifically building a list of, specific people targeting.
Correct.
Right. Yeah, I'll go with, besides the, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, just start now. I'll go with, along those lines, pick a platform that you want to start building community and then moving into brand advocacy around, whether that's a Facebook group or you start a closed system on Circle or School or any of the, Mighty Networks, any of those systems. Start building a group, but really start engaging people. You're not selling to them, you're engaging them in the conversation and the discussion. So all great stuff. So I love it. I think building community takes effort, but the return is definitely worth it, because your customers aren't just your buyers. They can be your biggest advocates. They can be the ones who sell in your absence. So with that, let's wrap up. Thanks for joining us today on the Marketing Guides for Small Businesses podcast. If this episode has helped you, do us a solid, share it with fellow business owners, leave us a review, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. We'll catch you next time with more real-world strategies to grow your business smarter. And Ian, with that, would you like to take us out? And I think I just stole a little of your thunder, didn't I?
Hey, that's okay. Until next week, folks, keep calm and market on.